Welcome back to your Pig Trail Show. Will LeClaire alongside Kevin McPherson for your Hog Hoops Report. Kevin, we are coming off a big trip to Maui. Couple entertaining games there. We knew that Creighton was going to be a problem, but we got two pretty good wins in there. What'd you see in Maui?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Creighton was a problem. Anytime you lose a game like that, though, there's no shame in it. It was one of those early season, holiday tournament classics. One of the games that's talked about by the national guys. That never hurts. Both teams are ranked in the top 10. What's the old cliche? It's a shame anybody had to lose. Teams were trading punches pretty evenly throughout, and Creighton did what it needed to do at the free throw line, 5 of 6 down the stretch. The last few possessions of that game to hold on to a one possession lead and win. But I thought Arkansas didn't give up. You hear that moral victory. Arkansas was down 12 against Creighton toward the end of that first half, went on a 6-0 run to cut that lead in half. And I really thought at that point it was going to be game on from that. I thought Arkansas, when I dial back to that Texas exhibition game, at some point we're going to quit talking about it. But that was the last time Arkansas faced real adversity right before the half, and a 5 point deficit went to 10, and then it snowballed early second half. So I think there was a learning point there against a really good team. Creighton 1 through 5 may be as good as anybody. But let's talk about those wins. You knock Louisville out in the first round. We know that's a winless team, not very good. But you're supposed to win 80 to what Arkansas did, 80 to 58.
Mm-hmm.
Really put the squeeze on that team, especially in the second half. I thought Arkansas finally, Trevin Brazil, you know, didn't have his best game. So when you win like that, and Brazil, one of your top producers, coming in with averaging a double double, you look at Anthony Black, whose name I should have probably started talking about him first. 26 points in that first win. He had 18 points in Arkansas's 3-0 start collectively. So that tells you what kind of offensive performance he had against Louisville. 3 of 5 from three, and he's also starting 6 assists in that game. And then you see Ricky Council step up. But I think the game that really teetered for Arkansas as far as is this a successful trip is obviously San Diego State. That's your rubber game, if you want to call it a rubber match. You're 1-1. You're coming off that heartbreak against Creighton. You could have had a hangover. I thought Arkansas did have a first half hangover. I didn't think they were dialed in. I thought that they were, some guys just weren't focused on to what was going on in terms of they were in a real rock fight against a San Diego State team that had 7 seniors and 2 juniors in their top rotation. They go 9 deep. And I just don't think that Arkansas was up to the task for at least the first half. But the lead was managed, the deficit was manageable. Arkansas was down by 13, as many as 13 in the first half, get it down to 9 at halftime. San Diego State pushed out a couple of times. Every time Arkansas would get close, push it back, maybe 11-point lead, and then Arkansas went to work again. And it wasn't just Anthony Black carrying water in this game. We saw him back-to-back 26-point games, but we saw other guys step up. We go back to Trevin Brazil. We go back to Ricky Council. But the one name we've got to mention in that second half is Kamani Johnson. Everything turned for Arkansas once they got their enforcer in that paint, because that was the way San Diego State was playing. To that point, Arkansas could not match that energy and that physicality. And Kamani Johnson led the way. Immediately started getting rebounds and got an offensive foul clearing a guy out of the lane. That's okay if you can minimize that and send a message while being productive. And that's what he did. Obviously the putback on Anthony Black's drive, Arkansas overcomes a 4-point deficit in the last 13 seconds to get it to overtime. Kamani Johnson, the putback is the shot of the year so far for the Razorbacks. You get an OT, Council gets a couple of buckets. Sandwiched in between there, San Diego State hits a 3 to take a 1-point lead back. But you could see Arkansas was up to the task. And I thought Arkansas, once it got to overtime, would win that game, and it did. Kamani had another putback and what looked like a melee under the basket. You started seeing guys going down hard to the floor because they were basically being tackled, and the whistles didn't always blow. So you've got to be prepared to play through that kind of stuff. And there's no better guy than a Kamani Johnson. Going to say his name one more time because I changed it for a day. I started calling him Kamaui Johnson because you leave the island the right way. Thanks to him, other guys had a hand in it. You look at Trevin Brazil with a 20-9. Again, Ricky Council putting up points, got to 19. Most of their production was in that second half. Because again, in the first half, I felt like the Hogs were sleepwalking. Anthony Black gets 15 points after scoring 26 and 26. He only has 15 which is only 3 points short of what he had total in 3 games before they went to Maui. So it's another good scoring night for him, but 9 of 10 at the free throw line. He hit some big ones late. And I look at other contributions. Jordan Walsh, we learned more about how tough that young man is. He's learning the nuances of the college game. But the other takeaway, the big takeaway here, when I look at all of it, Will, is they went 2-1 in Maui against, you got two ranked teams you played. These are going to be quad one results later when the NCAA net comes out a bit later. So you went 1-1, quad one on neutral site. That's going to help boost your resume. But I think the other big, huge takeaway is Arkansas did all this without Nick Smith Jr. We still haven't seen him. Eric Melsman addressed that in the press conference yesterday. He
Mm-hmm.
says he's getting better, that he's closer. I still am at a place. I think it might be a tad bit soon to expect to see him on Monday, but we'll see how it plays out. Melsman said they had two practices leading up to Monday's game. They'll see how much more he can do. I'm on the edge. I think he is very close, but I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna make a prediction. Maybe we don't see him on Monday against a really good Troy team that we obviously need to get into just a little bit and talk about this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Maui. Let's see if we can get that one to stick. Three really entertaining games, two really good wins. We always talk recruiting on the show. Kevin Musk said that he was done for 2023, but you're hearing something about a 2024 kid.
Well, yeah, I spoke yesterday just briefly with Elijah Chapa Moore. Chapa's his nickname. This is a big time shooter, 6'4" guard out of Cardinal Hayes in the Bronx. Top 75 player, so a high level 4-star. He's teammates with Ian Jackson, a 5-star, top 5 national 5-star that Arkansas has had an offer out to for a while and been recruiting. Arkansas coaches have stopped in multiple times during the recruiting period to see these young men practice. And apparently, while they were recruiting Ian Jackson, they like what they saw in Elijah Chapa Moore because they just extended an offer on Saturday. He confirmed that with me. But again, this guy's a sharpshooter. He's 6'4" guard who can shoot it. We know Arkansas's been a little low in the tank on shooters in terms of guys that make it to the floor the last couple of squads. And so I think when you start recruiting shooters like that, it tells you that maybe there's an eye on getting in good with a player like this that maybe can help you stretch the floor a little bit and add diversity to your offense. Because certainly Arkansas, when we look back at Maui, when we look back at last year, when we see the numbers, this team right now is hovering around 30%. It's down low again around the 300s in shooting. And so when you're recruiting, you're going to leave all options open. You're going to cast that wide net. I think between portal to finish out 2023, and I think looking at 2024, putting offers out to shooters is probably a good idea if you want diversity, especially on the offensive end in your lineup.
Yeah, would you call him the Portal Prince?
I've called him the portal prince, but look, I mean, it's hard to knock. You look at the freshmen they brought in, it's the number 2 class. I mean, look what Ricky Council and Trevin Brazil are doing. Brazil's on that still right there near averaging a double-double now against, when you look at the 6 games so far, there's some good teams they've gone up against. You look at, and in Troy, we need to talk about Troy because that's a 6-1 team. Will, we need to get into that a little bit because,
Yeah.
they're coming to Bud Walton Arena, but they've knocked off Florida State. This is a decent team. And I think when we call the Portal Prince, you're going to line up. Look, you're going to line up with Trevin. You're going to line up with Ricky, RC4. The Mitchell twins have started to come around. They gave Arkansas, we didn't talk about them. Gave Arkansas some good minutes in production as a tandem in Maui. So, there's been some good stuff already, both from the freshman group. When you get 11 newcomers out of 13, and it's effectively the number 1 recruiting class in the country, you better start seeing some results out of the gates. And Arkansas has done that. But I can't wait to talk a little bit about this upcoming matchup because I think this game could be a little tougher than maybe fans think, especially if we learn that Nick Smith Jr. is in fact not going to be available for the 7th game of the season.
Yeah, Kevin, before we get into that, we love talking Pro Hogs. I know you love putting miles on your NBA League Pass. What have you been seeing from those Pro Hogs?
Well, I want to start with Isaiah Joe for multiple reasons. The last 3 games, he's averaged over 12 points a game. He had his career high at the start of that 3-game run, 21 points, 7 of 10 from 3. He missed his first 3 in that game, and he hit his next 7. So 7 in a row, 21 points, hit a box score plus 17 in a loss. This was a loss in overtime to Denver, but he had some big shots in that game that really gave his team a chance to win. And then, when we moved beyond that, I got to go to the game in between there, sandwiched in between on Friday. I was in Oklahoma City, another overtime game, took the Chicago Bulls and beat the Bulls, but he hit his first 3. That was the 100th of his career. Then he hit his next three, which made it 9 consecutive, bridging those two games, which is now an Oklahoma City Thunder record. Kevin Durant, who is a surefire first ballot Hall of Famer,
Household
and
name.
arguably a top 10 player all time. He held that club record of 8 in a row before Isaiah Joe broke it. So it was a big weekend for Joe. He finished up last night getting minutes in a road loss in Houston. But getting to see him establish a couple of personal records and an organization record in person was pretty cool. But the fact that this young man now in his third season, after spending the first two in Philadelphia, is starting to get rotation minutes. His box score plus minus, it seems like it's plus every night. These last three games, it was plus every night, collectively plus 25. And he takes charges, gets deflections, steals. He does a lot of things on the defensive end in concert with that quick fire, rapid fire offense that he can produce, because it less is more with him and getting his production. And then one other pro hog I want to mention is Bobby Portis continues to average a double double in Milwaukee, playing off the bench. When you look at the statistics that the NBA puts out, only 10 players are averaging double digits in rebounds that have qualified for that statistic. So playing off the bench and being in the top 10 as a double double guy. Last week he led the NBA in double doubles. He had 10. So here's another pro hog getting it done on the court when we look at Arkansas Razorbacks after they move on to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely, Kevin. Now let's get into Troy here. This is a fan that a lot of Hog fans might already have circled as a win, but listening to the press conference yesterday with Moss, he's not sleeping on this team. It doesn't sound like you're sleeping on this team either.
I'm not. When you look at Miles and Nelson, two of those guards, they got 4 players averaging double figure scoring. They've got 3 more that are in their rotation averaging 8.5 or more. So this is a team that gets balanced scoring. So, Arkansas Musman likes to game plan to take your top 2 or 3 players out if he can. Sometimes it's only one. But when you got 7 guys that can score, that means someone else might pick up the slack if you're taking something away. Arkansas has been really good this year collecting steals, averaging 10.8 steals per game. That ranks top 20 in the NCAA Division I. Well, Troy's just a little bit better, over 11 steals per game, almost 12, to rank a little bit higher. Arkansas's not been a good free throw team in terms of efficiency, just under 70%, but also not real good at getting to the line. Arkansas's opponents are getting to the free throw line 1 trip more per game. That doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're used to leading the NCAA, so you get yourself in a game where both teams collect a lot of steals. That means a lot of up and in, maybe transition basketball. And so there might be some equalizers in there. The one thing you want to be able to do, though, is if it gets to a close game, is excel at the free throw line. Arkansas actually did a good job in this last game. They got there 38 times. The efficiency was just over 70%. You'd like to see it a little higher, but they knocked down free throws at the end. That's what they're going to have to do. So we can look at stats. We can do the pregame measurables, but this is going to bring a team that brings quickness. Arkansas's got a size advantage. They need to use that size. Don't turn the ball over. Arkansas's around 14 a game. Musman prefers it at 9 or less. I think realistically, if they can shrink it down closer to 11 per game, you get a great chance against Troy. You're getting more shots on goal. You're taking advantage of that size, athleticism, and quickness, and the other team's not running the other way. And then you get a cash into the free throw line. I think this could be a tight game for Arkansas, especially coming back. Even though they've had a few days back, Mosman pointed out they're the first team that played in this Maui Invitational to play a game, the soonest to play a game on Monday. Other teams will play a little later in the week. So we'll see if that factors in. Obviously, Arkansas is favored at home against the Troy team. Arkansas should win this game, but I think this is a dangerous opponent. I'm not going to call it a trap game, but I do think it's a dangerous opponent that does have a win over a high major and a Florida State team, not in the same conversation as Arkansas in terms of a quality opponent, but still they've knocked off a high major. The Troy Trojans have.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Watching the highlights myself yesterday of Troy, it seems like they've got a pretty serious 3 ball. So we'll see how this one plays out. Obviously, rooting for the Hogs. Kevin, we really appreciate having you on. We got to go to break. So much more Pig Trail Show coming up.